No, I hope, hello, and I hope everyone enjoyed their, whatever it is that you're doing for Easter festivities. Maybe you've secularized it. I was 2 nights ago detained at police Watchhouse. Again, they accused me of dressing like the Joker, and I found it to be superficial on the Christian cop's behalf, because he implied a mentality, saying, you're not a super villain. And I'm a 37-year-old boy. I don't, I'm a member of the Priceline Sisters Club. That's where I get my cosmetics, and cosmetics are just cosmetics. Whereas the officer to the left, they'd made some reference to a joke, and no joke from a Christian police officer is ever funny, so you won't remember it. But I made mention, I prefer the joke about how it's gay dudes who get into wearing moustaches. And then I noticed that it was that police officer of the two of them who was the most forceful with touching my body, but from beneath the rib cage. Which, if you read my posts, recent tacklings of Genesis, and in any case, now yeah, they're going, you're not a super villain, like, I'm particularly into titles, but I know what you guys are. And I'm offended by their frisking process. Airport security checking technology can check you for everything, whereas if they detain you at the Watchhouse, they strip you down and frisk you before putting you into a bedroom, a overnight cell. And then first thing in the morning, when you get up again, they frisk you again, going, oh, it's just protocol. I think it's just faith, because if Christ is to save them in some fashion by his death, everything about his death is horrid, except for this gesture of respect in placing a loincloth over his genitals. Now, for that reason, it's that same region on our bodies that these policemen are wanting to forever caress. And I've even suggested that it's best to self-isolate after you've been detained at a police watch house facility. Because if they're touching your genitals, suppose that earlier that day they had discovered a crime scene elsewhere, discovered and partially investigated a crime scene. They touch your balls or your banana or your ass. And then when they release you, you think, oh, I might take a stroll to clear my mind, and you end up inadvertently, you could begin to backtrack towards in proximate location to the scenes, one or more scenes that these policemen have established crimes to have occurred at, but left in query who was involved with this or that scene. For that reason alone, they should not be allowed to make genital contact by their hands. And what we know about airport security is that is enough to technologically eliminate the need for frisking whatsoever as well. Hello and further Easter salutations. The second now. Oh, fuck, what was the topic? Oh, yes. So I was seated. Uh, if you imagine the front of the Dixon Library and you go around the left corner and sit on the seats there facing the car park, it was from there that the police approached me, and um, I know there's been a lot of I've contended with a lot of people doing drive-bys on the basis of what they consider to be commensurate to some form of research. Yeah, what this officer does is I'm in this discussion with him saying, I know you need a warrant, not to harass me. I know that you're violating the Religious and Sex Discrimination Act by just pursuing me. I want a bail variation where I don't talk to the AFP whatsoever because you're the establishment that cost me my paternity. So as I was growing up, and unless you're my new daddy, and we're working on a project together, it's entirely patronizing for me to present at your facility and just hand in an ID card for you to look at. And so, what sort of the guy began to get quite angry as this is seated in one of those purple painted steel curved chairs by the side of the Dixon Library wall, and this copper puts the foot down and goes, why aren't you obeying my commands? And I said to him, this is before he said, you're not a super villain, which I'd never claimed I said I'm a member of the Priceline Sisters Club, and that's where I get cosmetics. But I'd never claimed the ideals of super villain, per se. I've claimed things like the police state mentality is oppressive, and that's largely to do with it being religiously corrupted. Now, as this police officer had pressed his, there's also assault charges pending because the prior time they did this to me, they cuffed me behind the back, dragged me down the stairway from this apartment, and he grabbed the officer grabbed the back of my head and grinded my forehead into the asphalt. I had blood pissing down my face and was required to be taken to Calvary, and they took me to Calvary Hospital emergency department on the way to taking me to the police watchhouse. So there's aggravated assault charges pending on them, and they want a bail condition where I'm to just walk into their office and go, oh hi, here's my ID, won't you look at it, and go out the back and do whatever, because they've already betrayed me at their word at that arrangement. The last variation I discussed was that I want a receipt. What I want it to be is a system where they have it as digital entry and can print receipts, so that I can then have a record and they have a digital record storing the dates by which I've presented, because it just takes two cops that don't like you and they go, I'll just say he hasn't presented, and then he'll be arrested at the watchhouse again. But so what? Yeah, as this officer was saying to me, why don't you obey my command? I noted that he had his butt pressed right out pointed out towards the children's playground of the Dixon Church. Now, while the term private eye, I think he put a cheeky spin on the word private eye, since when I was Because he's talking about obedience to his commands immediately before he goes to touch my ass. He's already thinking of touching my ass, putting his hands in my pockets, um, and he's knelt forward while pointing his ass and his sphincteral colon anus towards the little kids' children's playground of the Dixon Church. And what that yeah, I thought, well, I can remember being that age. I would read and study Cluedo books, and you know, I was not unfamiliar with the term a private eye, but you've put a real sort of anal spin on the term, you know. I've never mooned a children's playground. You, on the other hand, have done so while stating, "Why don't you respect my command?" One thing I hate about the AFP is when you call them as an institution out on their inhumanities. And this includes that every night that they've ever detained me, they've failed to medicate me at all with essential life-saving medication, and that has resulted in me being awake, insomniac the entire night. Every single detention, without fail, has involved the failure to medicate me with my pain medication. So they've done that every time. So they've constituted an emergency level danger for whom I would phone or be obliged to phone 000 in reporting of the AFP. In addition to being the agency that cost me my paternity from kindergarten onwards. So, you know, why would yeah, and so he's going. Meanwhile, the policeman with the mustache, who I said, you know, I do like the joke where they say that only gay men wear mustaches. Because when it came time to them trying to throw me in the paddy wagon, it was that officer with the mustache who kept on touching me forcefully, but from beneath the rib cage. So, you know, if you study they can't help but advertise everywhere that they've got Christianity scorched on their frontal lobe as they deal with all of you, with all of us. Airport security tight level technological scanners could be used to determine and answer their every question pertinent to whether you're in the possession of any dangerous items. Plus, when they check you prior to putting you to bed, they know it makes no sense whatsoever to wake you up again the following morning before taking you over to speak to a magistrate judge to frisk you again, unless they're going, well, here's a second chance to touch this person's genitals, their cock, their ass. It makes no. The technology exists. The loincloth on their savior is the only, and whose body they put in their mouths in church. The loincloth is the only thing that doesn't symbolize shame to them concerning his last moments and when Jesus died for them. So that's why I think they're even technology aside fixated on touching the genitals of people when it's like a Bronze Age maneuver that could have you backtrack and discover their past crime scenes. Dirty, nutty, filthy Christian pigs